Season passes have been a thing for a pretty long time, and I've never really been a big fan of them. It's basically a scheme that will make you commit to buying future content that you don't know anything about, with the incentive being that you might save a couple bucks compared to buying DLC piece by piece. Some games have implemented Season Pass in a way that's relatively tolerable, with reasonable prices and genuinely new content that is worthwhile and meets expectations. But others have exploited Season Pass to underhandedly siphon off content that should have been in the base game and sell separately as so-called additional content. This sort of practice has become particularly commonplace in fighting games, which will often exclude fighters and in-game items purely for monetization purposes. No fighting game series exemplifies this better than Dead or Alive, which recently saw the release of its 6th mainline entry to lukewarm reception. It's not just skimpy outfits and jiggle physics that are raising eyebrows. Dead or Alive 6 also released a Season Pass that's among the most ludicrously overpriced I've ever seen. If you go to the game's Steam page right now, you'll see that Dead or Alive 6 Season Pass 1 costs a mind-boggling $93. That's $33 more than the base game, and even the $80 digital deluxe edition of Dead or Alive 6 is $13 cheaper. According to the content description, quote, "This season pass will apply to 62 costumes and 2 new characters released during the period of March 2019 to June 2019. One of those characters will be Mai Shiranui from the King of Fighters series, and what's noteworthy here is that she was already a DLC character in Dead or Alive 5. You would think that they would just bring her back without charging money, given she's been in past games and isn't really new content. But instead they're pulling the classic maneuver of artificially stripping old content to sell separately as new. There is simply no excuse for crap like this when you look at how a game like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is handling content. Recall that every single character from past Smash Bros. Entries in the series made it into the base game's roster, including characters who were previously sold as DLC. As for future DLC that is planned for Smash Bros. Ultimate, it will all be comprised of completely new, never-before-seen characters. Nintendo isn't sitting on old material and biding their time until they can charge money for them when the time is right. They are actively developing new fighters that will expand upon the already enormous roster. We have already got Piranha Plant as a free character for those who bought the game before a certain deadline. Joker from Persona 5 will be the first DLC, and rumors suggest that the remaining 4 DLC characters will be radical new additions. Furthermore, each one of Smash Bros. Ultimate's 5 character DLCs will come with a new stage and new soundtracks associated with their respective franchises. And you can get all of that by purchasing a much more reasonably priced $25 Fighter Pass. With that in mind, I can justify paying a little extra for Smash Bros. Ultimate's DLCs, but the same couldn't be said for how Dead or Alive 6 is lazily charging money again for old characters like Mai. Another character who was featured in Dead or Alive 5 didn't make it into Dead or Alive 6, and may be sold separately as DLC is Momiji. And get this, when asked about Momiji's potential return back in January 2019, director and producer Yohei Shimbori basically said that they might bring her back as DLC only if Dead or Alive 6 does well. You've gotta love how this guy is misleadingly implying that the inclusion of an old character is contingent on the new entry's success, as if Momiji's return were some kind of monumental task when the character's framework is already there from her past appearance, and when all that's required is some tweaking. It's bad enough that he's giving off the impression of holding a desired character for ransom, telling people to buy the game if they want her to return, but the fact that they might be thinking about charging money for content that isn't really new makes this all the more egregious. I've seen a few people defend this practice by saying that characters like Mai and Momiji are guest characters and not a core part of the series. Well, first of all, Momiji is part of the Ninja Gaiden series, a property of Team Ninja and Tecmo Koei, the same developer and publisher behind Dead or Alive. So bringing Ninja Gaiden characters into Dead or Alive requires no effort or bypassing of red tape, just like it's no issue to include Ninja Gaiden characters like Ryu Hayabusa and Ayane, who are regulars of the Dead or Alive series. Secondly, why does it matter if they're guest characters or not? That doesn't change the fact that they're reselling DLC and or charging money for old content that should be in the base game. It would be like if Super Smash Bros. Ultimate made us pay again for previously paid DLC characters like Bayonetta, Ryu, and Cloud simply because they are guest characters. Keep in mind that there are also plenty of Smash Bros. Guest characters who were added to the roster for free as part of their respective base games, including Sonic, Snake, Mega Man, Pac-Man, and the Belmonts. And just as how it'd be ridiculous if we had to pay for these characters in future Smash Bros. Releases simply because they're third party, it's ridiculous that Dead or Alive 6 is charging money for old guest characters like Mai. Anyway, going back to Dead or Alive 6's Season Pass, you'll also see that in addition to Mai, there's a second character who will be packaged as part of the almost $100 Season Pass. But unfortunately, we don't know who this character will be, which harkens back to what I said about Season Passes being a way for publishers to make customers put money down on a product whose contents are unknown. At $93, one would at least expect a detailed account of exactly what paying customers will get by shelling out that kind of cash. Adding insult to injury is that this Season Pass doesn't guarantee you'll get all downloadable content that's being released between March and June 2019. There's a warning down here that reads as follows: downloadable content not included in the list above may be released during the same period, but it will not be covered by this Season Pass 1. $93, and the Season Pass can't even guarantee that you'll get all content offered in its allotted 4 months. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that this is only Season Pass 1. That's right, there will be multiple Season Passes like it to come. The sad part about this is that this is nothing new for the Dead or Alive series. Ludicrously priced DLCs were commonplace during Dead or Alive 5's tenure. Just check out Dead or Alive 5's Steam page, which lists every single DLC available for this game. The sheer quantity of them makes my head spin, 71 in total according to Steam, but painting a more horrifying picture is the price that all of this DLC amounts to. You are reading this number correctly. With current pricing, the price tag of every Dead or Alive 5 DLC amounts to a grand total of $1,289.79. That is almost $1,300 for stuff that's mostly comprised of woefully overpriced costume packages, with a significant portion of this listing also being comprised of characters you have to pay to unlock in the free-to-play version of Dead or Alive 5, and with 2 of the listed items being DLC characters Mai Shiranui and Naotora Lee, priced at $8 and $6 respectively. This is without including the different editions of the game players may have purchased, including the original Dead or Alive 5, Dead or Alive 5 Plus for Vita, Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate, and most recently Dead or Alive 5 Last Round. So yeah, if you want some idea of what Dead or Alive 6's roadmap will look like over the coming few months and years, look no further than Dead or Alive 5. Expect that 6 will release a few more editions of the game, bundling features and characters that are missing in its current iteration. Expect new and old characters alike to be sold or resold as separate DLC, and expect a flood of costume packages and overpriced season passes that will eventually amount to hundreds, if not over $1,000 when pooled together. It shouldn't take a genius to see that Dead or Alive 6 is the furthest thing from a safe purchase currently, especially with the bare-bones state it launched in. As one Steam review pointed out, Dead or Alive 6 is basically a graphically superior version of Dead or Alive 5 Last Round with some newly designed stages that's missing all the content that's been released over the 5th game's long lifespan. Instead of keeping everything from past games and extrapolating upon them, the developers intentionally stripped Dead or Alive 6 so that it's back to square one, thereby allowing a repeat of the last game's abhorrent monetization cycle. So unless you're a hardcore Dead or Alive fan with money to burn, you would do best to wait a few years until the game is fleshed out into something resembling a finished product before even considering a purchase. Or hell, you might want to avoid such a shameless product altogether, given you'd be contributing to a publisher and developer with zero integrity. I imagine that some people will defend this by saying that most of the DLC are cosmetic only, that they're just costumes. But there was a time when costumes were an inherent part of a fighting game's reward system, when they were incentive to keep players hooked on the gameplay loop, because players genuinely enjoy being able to customize the appearance of their favorite characters. Remember the good old days when costumes acted as unlockable content rather than monetizable products. Now, Dead or Alive 6's base package does come with a few costumes, but aside from the default selection being meager and uninspired, with most of them amounting to simple color swaps, players have expressed that they're a pain in the ass to unlock. One Steam review detailed how instead of unlocking costumes by simply playing the game with the characters you like, the way it works now is that players have to earn a bunch of randomly assigned points. Costumes apparently require at least 500 points each to unlock. The amount of points you earn from partaking in the game's various modes is paltry, yielding 1 point for beating the 20 minutes long arcade mode, for example. And when you do earn a point, you cannot choose where to assign it. The game does that for you on a random costume for a random character. So aside from this being a painstakingly throttled reward system that will require an unseemly amount of tedious grind to unlock even a single costume, the costume you do unlock might not even be the one you want. It's just a massive downgrade from how it used to work in Dead or Alive 5, which allowed players to run arcade once and unlock one costume for the used character, making this yet another display of publishers and developers pushing the envelope of anti-consumer practices. What sucks is that underneath the bullshit, there is a mechanically sound and fun game based on what user reviews are saying, but avaricious intent has all but marred core pillars like features, content, and design, a story that's all too familiar in this day and age. Dead or Alive 6 isn't even subtle about it. It's utterly shameless about selling content that should be included in the base game for almost $100 extra. And if Dead or Alive 5's barrage of DLCs that altogether cost almost $1,300 is any indication, this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on Dead or Alive 6's first of many season passes in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.